today what I wanted to speak about is regulation, something I'm very well familiar with. So what is the narrative that you're taught in an economic school? So Thatcher and Reagan, they took away regulation, and that freed up the market, it freed up entrepreneurship, freed up the economy, and so therefore we had a booming 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, all thanks to their freeing the economy from the burdens of the shackles of regulation. So let's look at just before they came in 1980, just before then the 70s. Was that a period of inequality? Well, actually, no. That was the period of the greatest equality between all sections of society, meaning even the top 1% and the bottom 90%. That was the most fair it ever was. Now, this is as well during a period of very high inflation. From the mid-60s till 1980 was a very, very high inflation. So you would think that would cause disparities. But due to strong trade unions, due to strong regulations, due to the inability of the rich to actually get richer, there was 90% tax bans in those days, both in the US and UK. So you can even get richer, right? It was impossible. That stopped that money going to the top 1% and creating inequality. What happens now? What people don't get is they think, oh, they remove regulations, so that allows more money to go into the system and everything. Let's put it in perspective. If you take a resistor out of an electric appliance, what happens? The appliance doesn't work. There's too much electricity going in. If I go and use the mains water supply in my house, it'll burst every pipe in my house because the pressure is way too strong. It has to be toned down to a home pressure. What people don't get is the regulations were put in for a reason. No one just came up and said, all right, this is the system. We're going to start from zero with 3,000 tons of regulation, and that's a system. And then slowly, they took it apart. No. What happened was there was a terrible system in Victorian times with no social benefits, no trade unions, no help to people, no minimum wages, no taxation. What's it called? Equitable taxation, taxing the rich more than the poor. There was none of that. And it slowly had to get built, a lot of it after the Great Depression in the 1930s, with banking separation, with stock market regulations to stop them basically Ponzi scheming everyone. And the stock market really didn't go anywhere from the 40s until 1980. It really actually didn't go anywhere, right? It never even achieved its 1929 peak ever in, what was that, like 50 years? Didn't go anywhere. So what we saw was regulation had really capped and was making things better. What they started doing is one by one, Big Bang, 1986, everyone remembers, where the stock market rules got taken away. And we already had our first giant crash in 1987, 1 year after they removed those regulations. Then you had the 1990s with long-term capital management collapsing in 1998. So the Fed had to reduce interest rates. That caused dot-com boom because obviously there was a disparity. Then they had to introduce dot-com bust, and they had to reduce interest rates even further. And it's spiraled out of control. But looking at regulation, one by one they were removed. Banking became the financialization of the economy has been the dominant theme since then. No one had, Gordon Gekko, greed is good, and all that, Wall Street and all that. There could be no parable film from the 70s because there was no such thing. It was only in the 80s when things were removed and, you could make, through speculation, billions in 1 second, that was possible. So since 1980, since regulations were removed, trade unions have been slaughtered, businesses, large corporations have dominated, taken over even governments. Where we are now is exactly where we didn't want to be when those regulations were imposed after the Great Depression. We didn't want to be where we are now, and we're here. The next disaster is going to, we've already seen the inequalities through the roof. The bottom 10% haven't earned one more penny in wages in 50 years. Even the rest of the other people have earned 33% more in 50 years, which is nothing. And the top 1% are hundreds of percent above what they've been earning. So all the benefits have gone to the 1%, and very, very, very little has gone. The trickle down economics theory of Ronald Reagan and Thatcher has not happened. People are, on average, less wealthy now, the average man, than they were then. That is a fact, right? We are less wealthy now. Two people need to work. One person could work then. The jobs is much more longer hours, much more, than it was then. That treadmill has gotten quicker and quicker for us to be keeping still to what they were earning then. So regulation, I'm afraid, is good, right? It is not bad. It is not the evil thing that people think it is if it's done properly. I'll just give you a very quick example. In the UK, obviously, the worst country in the world, which just allows any country to buy up all its assets and just get involved in everything. Let's give you an example. The electricity provider obviously was a nationalized company. Everyone had electricity. Yeah. Any power cuts? No. I mean, 70s they ran out of fuel, but other than running out of fuel, any power cuts due to not being able to supply it? No problems. What was the problem? They went and they split it up. Now it's owned by EDF, French national company, owned by the French state, RWE, owned by the German state, and the production is now mainly in Europe. So Britain now can't even produce its own energy. It is reliant on Europe. Number two, the prices have quadrupled, in real terms, much, much, much more expensive. And I can compare that to Israel, which is a nationalized company, also totally inefficient, and their fuel comes, and much more expensive than it does in the UK. But still, the bills are much cheaper because the add-on of those private companies isn't there. That profit margin isn't there. The trains in Britain also split up. Is the service provision anymore? Is it better than it was under National Rail? No, it's not. It's still late, still disastrous times, but the prices are I'm telling you, flights are much cheaper than trains in Britain. You can end up £150, £200 easy, London to Manchester, £200. That's insane, right? Unless you book it like months in advance, that's what you're paying. That's insane. So has it helped? No, it's not helped, this deregulation. But people, that's still the narrative that's put out there. And we need more regulation to stop these large businesses. We need more regulation to clamp down on monopolies. We need more regulation to stop share buybacks. We need more regulation to stop foreign players coming in buying out assets. We need more regulation for workers' rights. We need more regulation. The likelihood of getting it? Unlikely.